say is like there's always different emotions going in. But then what would you say it is?
I think it operates on two levels. I think even though the arrangements and the production changes, I think there is something in the way that I hear voicings in chords, the space that I leave for Tracy's voice, the way I think about writing when I'm thinking about fitting Tracy's voice into the track, that has been quite consistent through a lot of our records. Then there's obviously Tracy's voice, which is so unique, and I think it is that combination that gives this the signature sound. But then I think we have a kind of signature feeling to what we do.
Yeah.
I think the music is quite economical, it's very emotionally direct. I think you could probably take lyrics off several of our albums and interchange them, and you couldn't really tell which one it had come from. So I think that is what bonds it all together, and it gives us the freedom to experiment musically.
Yeah.
So that when we do something as radical, which is how it seemed at the time as Walking Wounded, people still hear it and they go, but it still sounds like Everything But the Girl. So there's something that we do, the way I voice things and arrange things, the way Tracy sings things, and the way we deliver the emotional message that is consistent, I think.
But, you know, there's still an element of that I think is mysterious even to us.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that's present in a lot of collaborative artworks, bands especially. You know, there is a kind of alchemy that takes place when you bring together these ingredients. So individually, you know, group members may be really strong. They may be able to make really strong solo works. And we're really proud of the solo records we've made. Nonetheless, I think we accept that when we put the things together, it slightly becomes more than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
And at that level you go, okay, I'm not entirely sure how and why, but, you know, maybe for each of us, you know, the things we think we each bring to the process then inspires the other one that little bit more as well. And so we, you know, we each kind of feed off each other, and it kicks us off into something new.
And how did you find if you entered into like a song and you disagreed about something? Did that happen? I mean, was there any, you know?
I think we had the vibe that at the beginning we were being very open-hearted. Just bring me your ideas, you know, I'm not going to suddenly get all critical on you. But then once we went, as I said, into that mode where we were taking it seriously, proper mode, then I think our view is what it's always been, which is if one of us isn't impressed, then that's it, the idea's dead, because we're not going to sort of stand there trying to persuade each other why this idea works. If I've sung or played you this thing and it hasn't worked, then it's not working.
Yeah.
And that's as simple as that. You know, we have to both, and there's plenty of other ideas that we do present to each other, and the other one immediately goes, oh, I like that, that's great.
Yeah.
So it's a no-brainer, really. It's, you know, it works or it doesn't work. And often with music, you can't really rationalise it. There is no, well, explain to me why you think this is a good idea. I mean, forget it. Then the idea's dead in the water, isn't it? You play it, the moment you hear it, you just go, yes.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that you said in interviews is that when you made Nothing Left to Lose, which was actually the last track that you were making, that you were making it and you were fiddling with it then, and you suddenly put on a kind of drum beat, and both your son and Tracy went, oh, what are you doing there? That sounds quite good.
Yeah, that was actually Forever.
Oh, was it Forever?
Yeah, no, which was the first track I put a beat on. Yeah. Because we worked on a lot of the ambient tracks first. When You Mess Up was pretty much the first thing we did. Interior Space was very early on.
Yeah.
And then I was just in my office space on the ground floor in our house, which could be overheard by the kitchen and Blake, our son, up the stairs. And I just put a kick drum on Forever. And within about 3 minutes, Tracy had put her head round the door like a meerkat and said, I like this. Ooh. And then I heard these feet come down the stairs, and it was Blake. And he put his head round the door going, Dad, is that one going on the album?
So you were like, aha.
Right, okay, so we need to bring some of this in as well, you know.
Because what you're talking about really is at the beginning when you were maybe the first few tracks, that they were more, I mean, they were less, I suppose we could use, I'm going to use a generic term, dancey.
They were. I think, we were both tiptoeing around the idea of, okay, what are we going to do? What is it going to be? And there was no obvious answer. We were working with empty space, a blank page. And as Ben said, he had these kind of slightly more ambient pieces that he'd been working on during lockdown. And we started out with those. Interior Space was one of the first tracks we worked on, which is really very unusual for us. It really didn't sound like anything we'd done before. And When You Mess Up was early as well. And we were really excited and intrigued by that thing we were doing. But I think we then did both have a moment of thinking, okay, did we seriously want to make a whole album in that vibe? And we weren't totally sure we did. And then we thought, well, okay, let's just try. So I think you put a beat on that one track and we just immediately went, okay, this sounds good. Again, there's no need to rationalise it. You don't have to sit here and argue, oh, well, do or don't we want to do this? What was your feeling when you heard it? Well, my feeling was, I'm excited, I want to listen to it more. So.
Yeah. And when you think about those two earlier ones that you just mentioned, which is in Interior Space, When We Mess Up, like, the Interior Space is it comes second to last.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting, it's a very unusual track, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you are talking about the interior space, the sensations, the emotions that you've got in your head, and then it's accompanied by a very unusual, like kind of, I want to use the word creepy.
Creepy soundscape.
Yeah, creepy soundscape. But it is interior. I mean, that's quite a pandemic-y feeling track.
Yeah, it kind of is. I mean, it was one of the piano improvisations that Ben had recorded, where he literally used to sit down and just sit his iPhone on the piano and hit record and just start playing. So not thinking I'm writing a song, but just play, little sequences. And that was one of those, wasn't it? And I think we ended up actually keeping the original iPhone recording. I think that is what's on the record, is what he recorded that day, which we then kind of looped and turned into the track.
But your lyrics are very unusual, aren't they? Because they are fighting about,
I mean, I think it's, it's interior space, it's about the inside of my head and it's about the inside of bodies as well. There's stuff about female bodies in there and bleeding and not bleeding and birth. And, it's about being at a certain age. It's a very, looking inwards kind of song. And it's one of the ones where we messed around with the vocal on it. We used this amazing kind of detuning sound where, my voice is completely shifted down and it sounds kind of druggy and woozy and psychedelic, which again seemed really appropriate. It's almost like someone waking up out of this kind of sluggish dream.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. Should we talk your voice? Because obviously one should talk about your voice. But what I wanted to talk about is how it's changed over the years and what that makes you, I suppose, what that makes you feel about your voice, because it is different now, isn't it? There's a different register to it.
It is, but to me, I suppose I've sensed it changing a lot over the years. Both from when I was young and witnessing it kind of, mature through my 20s and 30s, and then, in the years since then, when I came back to recording, it's been changing again. I noticed it when I made my last solo album record. I began to notice my pitch shifting downwards. I was very aware suddenly of a couple of extra notes at the bottom of my range, and I thought, oh, this is interesting. And then this time on this album, I think we really played with that because I'd got used to it by then. Record was 4 or 5 years ago. So I'd got used to this kind of slightly new range. So we experimented with it more. I think when we were writing melodic lines, we would sit at the piano and go, okay, what's the lowest note you can hear? Let's take the melody down here, because if that's your range, then let's use your range.
Yeah.
And we also really noticed it when we did the session for Six Music at Maida Vale recently, which I don't know if any of you heard that.
Yeah.
We did a couple of tracks from the new record then, and then we did Single, which was from Walking Wounded, and we ended up having to take it down a whole tone for Tracy to be able to sing it, and it was just proof that her voice had changed. She tried to sing it in the original key of A minor, and it just was too much of a strain.
Yeah, no, it felt really weird. I felt really uncomfortable, like I was kind of singing someone else's song.
Yeah, but we
really
took it
odd.
down just a tone to G minor, and suddenly it just sounded really normal.